Israeli forces have injured nearly 300 Palestinians during anti-settlement protests in the north of the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society says 26 people were hit by live rounds in the village of Beita and Beit Ajan, both near the city of Nablus. Israeli military also reportedly used drones to disseminate poisonous gas during the protests. The Palestinians were protesting against the construction of a new settlement outpost on top of the Sibay mountain. Israeli forces also injured at least 25 Palestinians in the Silwan neighborhood of occupied East Jerusalem Al-Quds. Also, Israeli forces attacked and dispersed people taking part in a marathon. Now, the race was aimed at raising awareness about dozens of Palestinian families facing eviction in Silwan and Sheikh Jarrah neighborhoods. And now joining us for the program is Mr. Kevin Barrett, author and Middle East affairs expert, joining us from Madison, Wisconsin, and Rabbi David Weiss, spokesperson for Neutral Karta International, joining us from New York. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you both to the program. Mr. Kevin Barrett, we're going to start with you there in Madison, Wisconsin. Your thoughts on protesters getting attacked in occupied territories?
Well, this is a regular occurrence, and it hardly ever gets covered in the Western mainstream media. Palestinians have been mostly peacefully protesting for just asking for the same rights as the squatters and invaders who came and stole their land. This has been going on for decades, and the response to the protests is typically the Israelis put them down violently, often with live rounds, and actually murdering and deliberately crippling huge numbers of peaceful protesters. Just 3 years ago, in spring of 2018, the Great March of Return protests, which were peaceful protests of large numbers of Palestinians approaching the apartheid border walls, were met with massive live fire. I think over 300 were killed and 18,000 injured, including thousands of children. Many of them were deliberately shot in the kneecaps and permanently crippled. Israeli soldiers bragged about the record for one of them getting something like, I think it was 48 knees in one day. That's the big front page headline in Haaretz. So this brutal reaction to peaceful protests like marathons, people trying to run a marathon and then get shot at and attacked and beat up and gassed and so on. This just goes to show what's really happening in occupied Palestine, which is a slow motion genocide. And by the way, it's an honor to be on the show with Rabbi Weiss. I'm a huge fan of his and was honored to meet him once in Tehran. And I'd like to hear what he has to say about this.
Thank you. And Rabbi David Weiss, pleasure to have you back on the program twice in 24 hours. The pleasure is all ours here on Press TV. Rabbi, your initial thoughts on this, please.
Well, first, with the help of the Almighty, I pray to the Almighty that He should bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may convey His message and sanctify His name. Inshallah, we hope the word should get out and we could bring peace to the world finally. I appreciate your esteemed guest that we've met in Tehran, yes, and it's really an honor again. It's always an honor to be on Press TV, and it's our privilege to speak up for the people of Palestine. I must say that thank God, I could just say that the Jewish people, true to the Torah, have not been silent since since the beginning of Zionism, but in the last week, the last 2-3 weeks since this attacks, the brutal attacks on Gaza and West Bank and the Sheikh Jarrah and all these, what's happening, we tirelessly, week after week, day after day, we have demonstrations in Washington, D.C., in front of the United Nations, and throughout the world, actually, in London and so forth. So we've been demonstrating. We always like to make people aware that the Zionists use chemicals on the Jewish people protesting in the city of Al-Quds in Jerusalem with impunity. Sometimes it's not poisonous, but it's just it destroys all their clothing. They know it's a poor community, and they want to silence their demonstrations. So they use this called stink gas or skunk gas, that chemicals that just destroys all their clothing. But thank God, our brothers and sisters refuse to be silent, and we tell the world we want the leadership of the world, whether it's the presidents or prime ministers or kings, whatever it may be, that they must accept the fact that they're being conned and duped by the so-called democracy, the Zionist state of Israel, that claims to represent the Jewish religion and Jewish people, when in truth, the Jewish religion is antithetical, is totally contradictory to the concept of occupying, of stealing, of taking the land. It's forbidden for us to take the land of another people, to kill or to steal. It's forbidden for Jews to have a so-called sovereignty since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago. And always, I have to always just wave that letter that's the United Nations documents, where the chief rabbi of Palestine said that we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine, and that the Jewish people in Jerusalem are being beaten, arrested, and assassinated because they refuse to accept the occupation in any shape or form. That means that the Zionists have little excuse. They claim that they're killing the Palestinians because they're being attacked by the Palestinians, which is a vicious lie. But they're even attacking the Jewish people that would never carry arms. Never. It's over 70 years. It's 73 years of the state, and even earlier. Our esteemed rabbis have been shot, have been assassinated on the streets. Old men, they're assassinated. Now, what's the excuse? None of us carry arms, yet they continue doing this with impunity because the world looks at them as if they're democratic, and they're simply trying to repel a force that wants to wipe out the Jews, that is anti-Semitic. This is the repulsive, it's repugnant, and totally false. We have been living together for hundreds of years, as in Iran. We've lived for thousands of years in peace and harmony, as the Islamic Republic of Iran continually states that they are not against Jews or Judaism, just against Zionism and the occupation. This is antithetical, like as I say. It's unacceptable according to the Jewish religion. It is an outcry. It is outrageous. It is illegal. It is against God as it is against humanity, which we call godliness. Now we're pleading that the world leaders must take the matter into their hands. They must somehow realize what's happening. You just have this last day that the report of a live ammunition and poisonous gas that's been attacking the people of Palestine. This is really we have to continue. And looking at Press TV and the other legitimate news outlets to speak up against the ones that are cowering and intimidated, the news outlets that's around the world that are being intimidated are refusing to report the truth. So we plead with the world that as a Jew, we are representing Jews of Jerusalem, of Al-Quds, and here in the United States, the very large Jewish communities, that there's not one Israeli flag right across from Manhattan, the largest concentration of religious Jews, and so the same is in London and around the world, that the voice of Judaism states that it is unacceptable, it is a criminal act, a totally criminal act, what's being done to the Palestinians, trying to now evict the people of Sheikh Jarrah or Silwan or etc., or stopping a marathon. This is unacceptable. This is what they, a marathon is a totally peaceful march. How dare they? And the world is silent. They cannot be silent. We must speak up. We have demonstrated this week, as I say, we've gone in Washington and around the world. We are going to be continuing this coming week, but we must plead with the world news outlets to report this.
Thank you, Rabbi. And Mr. Kevin Barrett, why is it so hard for so many to get this one thing right? That when you see Asians being attacked in the streets of the U.S. because of the COVID pandemic, when you see Jews being attacked because of what happened in Gaza, it's the same ideology of the people that hurt the women and children in Gaza. It's a supremacist, it's a prejudice ideology. Why can we get it right in so many places in the world in this one point on the map? Why do we get it so wrong? Or I shouldn't say we, because we're obviously not getting it wrong, but why are so many people in power getting it wrong?
Well, there is a tendency in all people, of course, to fall into the problems of egotism and then collective egotism, which is ethnocentrism. But then when the powers that be, or shouldn't be, divide and conquer us by playing on that kind of ethnocentrism and ethnic egotism to make us hate other kinds of people for their own benefit, that makes it all that much worse. And I think one of the reasons it's so terrible in Palestine, beyond how it is in most parts of the world, and this is the longest running problem like this anywhere, and it's got so much religious significance, of course, as well. I think it's partly because the Zionists, deep down inside, they know they're wrong. They know that they're morally wrong. They know that they've invaded another people's territory unjustly and stolen their land and are in the process of committing a slow motion genocide. And at the same, they also probably know that their project has very dim prospects in the long term. And so this combination of knowing that they're wrong and knowing that it's probably futile, I think that combination causes them to lash out and take out their frustration by being extra nasty and mistreating their victims even worse. And that's where we see this just over the top horrific behavior, like when Chris Hedges in his article Gaza Diary described the Israeli snipers barking out obscene insults over their loudspeakers to lure the Palestinian children within range of their guns so they could shoot them dead for sport. And Hedges said he'd never seen that in Sarajevo. He saw the snipers killing. He never saw snipers actually sport shooting kids like that anywhere. And that extreme, extra dose of evil and sadism, I think, is coming out of frustration because the Zionists know that they're wrong and they're doomed.
Gentlemen, we are over time. I want to thank you for joining us on the program. Mr. Kevin Barrett, author and Middle East affairs expert, joining us from Madison, Wisconsin, and Rabbi David Weissman, spokesman for Neutral Eye Cards International, joining us from New York. Pleasure to have you both on, and do stay safe. And viewers, that's a wrap for this segment of your Press TV's News Review program. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye for now.